Hi again and welcome back. In this very short video, we're just going to be looking at a few words that have to do with reading and writing. Ta biblion is the basic word for a book or a scroll, and most books were written and carried around in the form of scrolls in the 1st century. There was such a thing as a bound book as we know it today. It was called a codex, but they weren't very popular. Actually, they weren't very popular until the 2nd and 3rd centuries, as Christians used them for binding together the New Testament and other scriptural sections. But Jews talked about the Old Testament scriptures as ta biblia, the plural of ta biblion, since the Old Testament was a collection of scrolls, separate scrolls, often held in a box or repository together in the synagogue. Hagrammatus is a scribe. Notice this is a 3rd declension noun of the hiereus type, so its endings will go like hiereus does: hagrammateos, hagrammatei, hagrammatea in the accusative, etc. Scribes are an interesting role in the 1st century. On the one hand, slaves were often trained as scribes and could end up being far more literate and educated than their masters. Among Jews, scribes also served as legal experts. They were often called on to write up legal documents, and so they needed to know what the legal requirements were, both in civil law and in terms of Torah. But that also meant then that they were often called on to give advice about everyday situations in which people were trying to keep Torah. There were scribes in every little village, and scribes didn't need very much equipment. I like this illustration at right because it gives us a more accurate picture than most illustrations of how a scribe would have worked. Scribes didn't have desks in this period. Instead, they would balance their scroll on their lap, on their knees, and write just on the surface of the scroll that was stretched across their 2 legs. They would also have a inkwell and possibly also a mortar and pestle for grinding up more carbon to make more ink when they needed it. The one unrealistic or just anachronistic part of this illustration is that all of the books here and the book that's being read by the scribe is, they're all bound books. They're all codices. That's the plural for codex. And of course, in the 1st century, a scribe would almost certainly be working with rolled scrolls instead. The verb grapho means I write. And the first aorist, notice, will be egrapsa, because we have, if you remember the square of stops, a P-class vowel at the end of the stem. Phi is a P-class vowel. And so when we have a P-class vowel combining with sigma, we get a psi. So instead of egrapsa, we get egrapsa. Anaginosko means I read, and it shares the same irregular forms as ginosko does. So the second aorist form of ginosko is egnon, which means the second aorist form of anaginosko will be anagnon. You can see here that the verb is formed from a combination of the preposition ana, which can mean again, and ginosko, to know. So I've always thought this is an interesting little picture of what it means to read. It gives you a chance to know again what the words are.